Imagine you're standing at the edge of your camp. It's midnight. There's no moon. The fire behind you is dying. You can't see your hand in front of your face. And somewhere out there in the dark, something is moving. You can't see it. You can't hear it clearly, but every part of your body knows it's there. That feeling has a name, and it's older than our species. We talk about fear like it's a personal problem, like anxiety is a modern malfunction, something to meditate away or medicate into silence. But fear is not a malfunction. Fear is the oldest technology humans ever had, and the fears that live inside you right now were not built for the world you're living in. They were built for a world that ended thousands of years ago, a world where the wrong feeling at the wrong moment meant you died before sunrise. This is the story of what your ancestors were actually afraid of, and why those fears never left. Let's start with the obvious one, darkness. Not the darkness of a bedroom with the curtains drawn, not the soft dark of a city night with streetlights bleeding through the window. Real darkness, total darkness. The kind where your eyes never adjust because there is nothing to adjust to. For 300,000 years, this was every night. And it wasn't just uncomfortable. It was genuinely lethal. Leopards hunt at night. Hyenas hunt at night. Wolves, lions. The vast majority of the predators that fed on humans for hundreds of thousands of years are nocturnal or crepuscular. They were built for the dark. We were not. Human night vision is among the worst of any large mammal on the planet. In total darkness, we are almost completely blind, and our predators knew it. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have documented that attacks by large predators happen almost exclusively after dark. Even today, in communities still living close to the original human pattern, leaving the firelight at night is understood as one of the most dangerous things a person can do. So your fear of the dark is not irrational. It is a 300,000-year-old survival assessment that has never been updated. Every time you feel uneasy in a dark room, some ancient part of your nervous system is doing its job perfectly. It just doesn't know the job is finished. But darkness was only the beginning. The second fear is stranger, and most people never recognize it as fear at all. Silence, not peaceful silence. The specific sudden silence that falls when something predatory enters an environment. Birds stop calling. Insects go quiet. The ambient noise of the natural world drops out completely. Your ancestors learned to read this silence the way you read a text message. It was information, immediate, urgent, unambiguous. When the forest went quiet, something was wrong. Something was close. This is why sudden silence still triggers unease in humans today. Why a room that goes unexpectedly quiet makes people look up. Why the absence of background noise in an unfamiliar place feels wrong in a way that's hard to explain. You are not imagining it. You are reading a signal that was written into your nervous system before language existed. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford has spent decades studying how human threat detection systems evolved. His research points to something striking. Humans don't just respond to what they can see or hear. We respond to the shape of what's missing, the gap where sound should be, the space where movement should be visible. We evolved to notice absence because in the original world, absence meant something was hiding. Then there were strangers. This one is uncomfortable to talk about, but it shaped human psychology more deeply than almost anything else. For the vast majority of human history, a stranger was not just an unknown person. A stranger was a threat with a face. Early human groups were small, typically between 30 and 150 individuals. Everyone you knew, you had known your entire life. You understood their behavior. You could predict them. You trusted them because you had to. A stranger arrived from outside that circle, carrying information your nervous system had no framework for. You didn't know their intentions. You didn't know their alliances. You didn't know if the group they came from was at war with yours, or hungry, or carrying disease. Across the archaeological record, evidence of intergroup violence between early humans is extensive. Sites in Sudan, Germany, and Spain show mass killings dating back tens of thousands of years. Injuries consistent with deliberate execution, skulls fractured from behind, bones bearing the marks of stone tools used not for butchering animals, but for something else entirely. Strangers were dangerous, and your nervous system encoded that lesson permanently. This is why the feeling of being watched by someone you don't recognize still triggers a physical response. Why a stranger standing slightly too close activates something beyond social discomfort. Why human beings, no matter how rational, still carry a low-level vigilance around unfamiliar faces in unfamiliar places. You are not being paranoid. You are running a risk assessment program that kept your ancestors alive for hundreds of thousands of years. But the fear that might surprise you most is one almost nobody talks about: open spaces. Not the calm appreciation of a wide landscape, the specific dread of being caught in the open with no cover, no trees, no rocks, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Your ancestors lived in environments where cover meant survival. The savannah was not a peaceful backdrop. It was an arena where the rules were simple. If something larger than you could see you before you could reach cover, you were dead. Being exposed was being vulnerable, and being vulnerable in the original world was often fatal. There is a well-documented human preference for environments that offer prospect and refuge simultaneously. High ground with a view and something solid at your back. A seat in a restaurant facing the door. A position in a room where you can see the entrance but cannot easily be approached from behind. These are not personality quirks. They are the behavioral residue of 500,000 years of threat management. Psychologist Roger Ulrich at Texas A&M studied human responses to landscapes across dozens of cultures. He found consistent preferences for environments with open sightlines, scattered trees for cover, proximity to water, and elevated ground. Not because these places are beautiful, because these are the environments where early humans were safest, where you could see predators coming and had somewhere to go. Your idea of a beautiful view is an ancient threat map. And then there is the last one, the fear underneath all the others, the feeling of being watched when nothing is there. Almost every human culture in history has independently developed a belief in invisible presences, spirits, demons, gods that observe, forces that move through spaces unseen. Anthropologists once assumed this was primitive superstition, something civilization would eventually outgrow. But the pattern is too consistent, too universal to dismiss that simply. In 2009, researcher Pascal Boyer at Washington University published a detailed analysis of how supernatural beliefs emerge across cultures. His conclusion was direct. The human brain has a hyperactive agency detection system. It is wired to assume that unexplained movement, sound, or sensation has an intentional cause. Something did that. Something is here. In the original world, this bias saved your life. A rustle in the grass that you attributed to a predator when it was actually just wind cost you nothing. A rustle in the grass you dismissed as wind when it was actually a leopard cost you everything. So evolution built a system that always errs toward assuming presence, assuming agency, assuming something is watching. Every ghost story ever told is that ancient system misfiring in a world without leopards. Every time you feel uneasy in an empty house, every time the dark feels occupied, every time the silence feels wrong, you are not imagining things. You're running a detection system so sensitive it finds threats that don't exist, because the alternative was to miss one that did. Here is what all of this adds up to. The fears that shaped your ancestors didn't disappear when civilization arrived. They didn't get filed away when we built walls and cities and electric lights. Evolution doesn't move that fast. We went from living on the open savanna to living in climate-controlled apartments in a time frame that is, in evolutionary terms, basically yesterday. Your nervous system hasn't caught up. It probably won't for thousands of years. Every anxiety you carry, every low-level unease in the dark, every instinct to face the door, to scan the tree line, to feel something is wrong when the birds go quiet. These are not disorders. These are not weaknesses. These are the operational remnants of a survival system that worked for a very long time in a very dangerous world. The world that built your fear is gone, but the fear is still here, still scanning, still running its calculations on a world it can no longer find. And maybe that's the strangest part of all. You are walking through the safest world any human has ever lived in, climate-controlled, predator-free, locked and lit and monitored. And some part of you, deep and old and past the reach of reason, still doesn't believe it, still listening for the silence, still watching the dark, still waiting for something that stopped hunting you thousands of years ago. It hasn't gotten the message yet. And you can feel it every single night at the edge of the fire.